Greetings and welcome BUSN 1360 Software Apps for Business Students. I'm Dr. McGrory, and today our focus is on Word Chapter 4, which is working with pictures, tables, charts, smart art, and more. And the thing that these have in common, pictures and charts and smart art, which is not listed in the title name, is that they're objects. They are in containers that float above the text. With that being said, we can insert them to some extent into the text, but it's really this segue into working with objects, which is a transferable skill that will carry with you into Excel and PowerPoint. So lots of really important stuff to learn here. This is a longer project, so let's jump in and get started here. I have already created my Word Chapter 4 folder. I've already downloaded my start file. You know how to create the folder, download your start file, and I also downloaded my solution file. And I've opened it to look at it, and I encourage you to start making this a habit because I get to see the finished product of my work. Now the video, you can follow along with me so that your screen looks like my screen before you get to step 20. You don't want to find out in step 20 that you made an error in step 3, okay? So look, follow along with me, compare your screen to mine, but the solution file is going to help you make decisions. For example, about the correct graphic to choose, right? Look at the style here in this document, this beautiful border that they have around the page edge. They have a schedule here for this fall festival. They put star next to the authors to draw attention to that. This is a really nice document, and they've even inserted a chart that shows the breakdown of authors by genre. Isn't this informative? But still very exciting, not boring text. Excellent. Let's get started on this. So I've got my instructions open. I'm already into SimNet. I'm ready to begin the project. And what are the first steps? Always. And I'm sorry, we should look at what are we doing. We'll be editing the Great Fall Book Festival flyer, so read why you're doing this. Here are the skills that you're going to employ for this. And instruction number 1, we need to open the document. Number 2, we need to enable editing. Let's minimize this, and let's double-click to open that document. As you know, we enable editing. Well, there we go. Enable editing. I'm in this multi-page view, so you can see how it's arranged. And what I observe is, first of all, the border is already around the page, and everything is this very consistent blue. The titles, these headings, look at that, how beautifully consistent that is. The font is the same, so I suspect those are headings, right? Or at least they are consistent with the theme. We learned how to do this beautiful shaded border down here, this accent border. It's also in that same shade of blue. So this looks like a collection of fonts and colors, like a theme, right? So they've probably applied a theme. Very nice, 3-page document. We can see that in the lower corner. We can also see the page number and dates that you know how to apply those. All right, back to the top. I'm going to click in the document and Control Home to get to the very top. Now, I have already had my show hide marks on in Microsoft Word, so the computer tends to remember that. If your show hide marks are not already turned on, I encourage you to do that. It's not in the instructions, but when you edit a Word document, you need to have these turned on so that you can make the appropriate edits. You can see how many spaces are between items. You can see how many lines there are, how many paragraphs. Very important. In this case, I can see my cursor flashing at the very, very beginning of the document, and I see that that paragraph mark is much larger than the remaining paragraph marks. It's even larger than the titles, like Agenda and Thursday, September 8th. So this is probably a large title of my document that they're waiting to insert. But it's good to just notice these things. If I didn't have my show hide my non-printable characters displaying, the one thing I would observe is that my cursor, my flashing cursor, is a lot larger. Only when I show hide those non-printable characters do I see the reason that that paragraph is formatted differently. We're learning a lot, and these are carryover skills that are going to be very important as we keep going forward. So I've opened the document. I've enabled editing. On to step 3. In step 3, we're going to insert WordArt, which you learned about in your SimBook assignment for this chapter. So we want the cursor at the top of the document. We'll Control Home, ensured that we're at the top of the document. We're going to click the Insert tab, and in the text group, we're going to add a WordArt. We're going to choose a very particular style of that WordArt, and you're going to see that applied to this text, the Great Fall Book Festival. And then we're going to select that again and set the size of that. Now, I showed you how to display the instructions side by side with the Word document. As we work with this particular assignment with the objects that we're going to be using, it's going to complicate things a little bit to have the screen at a smaller size. I do have the benefit of having 2 screens, so I'm going to move these instructions to the side. Something I'll suggest to you, a great benefit of working on campus is that you can find perhaps an empty computer lab, or perhaps even in the library, unless it's full in the library, and log into 2 computers. Like I said, an empty computer lab on campus is a great opportunity. Log into one computer, have the instructions on it, or maybe you have the instructions open on your cell phone or on a tablet while you have the Word document open on a computer. These are helpful tips that will keep you from making mistakes simply because you couldn't see the assignment well. So the instructions say, place the cursor at the top. Once again, make sure you have done Control Home to get to the very top. Click the Insert tab. On the Insert tab, we're looking for the text group. These are groups. And as I go all the way across to text, look at these cool things that I can insert. There's a quick way or another way to insert date and time. I have other objects that I can insert. Many things, but we're going to insert a WordArt. And they told us Aqua Accent Color 1 with a shadow, but they did say it's the second option in the first row. Aqua Accent Color 1 Shadow. Excellent, I'm going to pick that. So I have a box on my screen. Do you see that box? It's not just regular text, it's in its own container. And we started to learn a little about containers when we looked at the difference between the header and footer and the body of the document. The body is in one container. The header and footer are different containers. Now we've introduced this container with this fancy dancy text, this WordArt. Right now, all my text is selected, and whatever is selected will be affected. So if I just start typing the great, then you can see it replaced what was there. Now, I'm going to Control Z because some common mistakes, but they're not really mistakes, it's just things you need to know. If you clicked inside that box when you saw it, notice that all the text is not selected now. That means I have to delete, 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 and I don't want to do that. So you know many ways to select the text. For example, you could triple click to select a paragraph, and it selected all that text. Something else I would point out is if I clicked inside there, Control A, it selects all, but in this case the container is just that square. So Control A selects all that text. Another thing that we're going to talk more about is I just want you to see up here that you have a new ribbon that only displays when this container is selected because it applies only to this container. So another mistake, as we're following these instructions, If you clicked someplace else on the document, that container is no longer selected. Notice even the ribbon went away. So I must select the container. I can see my ribbon came back, and I need to select all my text. I'm going to control, oops, I'm sorry, I hit a funny, go away. I hit a funny key there. Let me just triple click that. Now, it said to type the Great Fall Book Festival. Make sure you've spelled it correctly. And goodness, as I look at that, it's on top of my paragraph. How is that even possible? Well, we're learning that SmartArt, by default, will add to your document on top of the existing text. Sometimes you like that. Sometimes you want something to kind of hover slightly over. Now, in our case, they said they want the font to be a size 28. And if I look up here on the Home tab, it's telling me that it's Century Gothic heading style, but the size is 36. And because it's so large, it's wrapping around to the next line. So click that drop-down box and choose 28. Nothing happened? What is selected will be affected. So select that text. I triple clicked, select that text. Again, it's telling us this is its current size. Drop down box 28. What is selected will be affected. Okay, let me bring my instructions, slide them back over. We did this WordArt, right? We placed the cursor at the top, we clicked the Insert tab, we added WordArt, we formatted it with this particular style, we added the words, checked our spelling and capitalization, we selected the font type, and then we changed the size to 28. On to step 4. Now it says we're going to change the layout of the WordArt. And it says that we click the layout options, and if we don't see the layout options button, that to make sure we still have that WordArt selected. Again, if you click off of it, then your options change. So just select it again. And we're going to say that the layout that we want is in line with text. And it says once we do that, if the box doesn't go away, we can click outside of it to hide it. I'm going to show you that. So my box is currently selected. Again, if you've clicked away, click back so that it is selected. So where are these layout options? They are conveniently located in this button that is hovering off to the side. And when I click on that, what this is showing me is layout. How is it positioned amongst the text? How is my SmartArt, which is represented by this U, how is it presented when other text, like these paragraphs, are around it? So we have all kinds of options, and you can play around with those to, when you're working on your personal document, you can say, what does this one look like? What does this one look like? And it's kind of fun to format. But they wanted us to select in line with text. Now, did you see how that wrapped around? What I want you to notice is this paragraph mark right here. If I undo this, which I'll do in a minute, what you'll see is that paragraph mark was over here to begin with, because the text was floating in the document. Now that we've said, no, this SmartArt has got to be inserted into the document, it's actually in the paragraph. So the paragraph mark moved over here. I've done the formatting I want. I'm done with this box. To make it go away, just click the button again. You're going to see that a lot with future charts and things that we're doing. Okay, so this is one of those transferable skills. You'll still be clicking these little side buttons to display and clicking them to close even as we go into Excel. Now I'm going to click away someplace, in other words, deselect that, so I click away someplace. If I do Control Z, watch that paragraph tab, you see how it's over here? And the text is just floating on top of the page. Control Y to redo. Now it's in line with the paragraph. Excellent. Have we saved this excellent work? Let's save. Make sure we save. We completed step 4. We changed the layout options and we made the box go away. On to step 5, and I see an interesting note here. It says place the cursor at the beginning of the first paragraph, click the Insert tab, and in the Illustrations group, we're going to click the Icons button. So we're going to insert an icon, a little different than a picture because icons tend to be a smaller file size. They tend to be more sketch-like, right, rather than a photograph, for example. We're looking for 3 stacked books, and it tells us the icons in your version may appear a little different due to different updates. So look for the icon. Look for 3 stacked books, and they're trying to show us what it looks like. We do know a little bit of what it looks like because we have the solution file. All right, and then we're going to insert that once we find it. Let me move this away. And here I am up here again, and it's placed the cursor at the beginning of the first paragraph. So you see my cursor flashing at the beginning of the first paragraph. I'm going to go to Insert. You know, and I'm pausing here because when they say at the first paragraph, this can be tricky sometimes because remember in Microsoft Word, this is a paragraph and this is a paragraph. So as I click here, this is in our English classes, that's a paragraph. So I might be inserting at the wrong location. What I know from the solution file is that we're going to move this icon. So I'm going to go ahead and insert it here because I know that we're going to move it based on what I saw in the solution file. So I'm clicking here. I'm on the Insert ribbon, and I'm in the Illustrations group. And amongst my many icons, and look, here's SmartArt also. I could have gone here for SmartArt. Oh, the other was WordArt, right? I'm sorry, I'm thinking ahead for SmartArt. My apologies. Come to Icons. A little caution that I'll give you here. First of all, you can insert many things from here. You see the different tabs. This dialog box can take a little bit to load if you have a slow internet connection. This might be a great reason to go ahead and go to campus and invest a little time. Again, you can perhaps use multiple computers to follow the instructions, and your internet speed may be a little faster. Now, they told me to insert an icon, but they said go to the education group. So look at all these groups. And look at all these icons. Goodness, I have many. Bugs, I could insert some bugs. All kinds of things. Let me keep going across. They're not in alphabetical order. So you see weather and things like that. Here's education. I'll click that. And as I look, I can immediately see these 3 stacked books. And I see that there's more than one. But the one that they saw in the illustration, it wasn't, this black and white, but it did have a filled in book cover. So I'm going to choose this one with a book cover. I do want you to notice that you have the option to choose multiple icons. You can typically double click for it to insert, but I've selected it and I'm going to click Insert. And there's my icon, and we've inserted it. Oh, and I think I should save that because that's good work. I'm going to bring my instructions back over, and we've placed the cursor, we insert, we went to the Illustrations group. Make sure to follow these instructions carefully, go into the Education category, and then click the Insert button. Now we're on to step number 6 already. It says Modify the icon on the Graphics Format tab. Well, look up here. Here's my browser, and I'm pulling it out of the way a little bit. Look up here. Just like with the WordArt, where I had an additional ribbon, now with this icon, I have an additional ribbon. It displays only when that particular object is selected, and it tells me what I can do to that object. Now, it's not, just because it's in blue, it's not always selected, so make sure you have that selected. But it says I'm going to go to this and I'm going to change the style. apply, and this really long name, style. So I'm looking for these graphic styles to the icon. I'm going to move these instructions out of the way and we'll demonstrate. So here amongst the styles, I'm going to expand that using this drop-down box. And it said it wants color filled, so I know I'm going to be in these categories, these two rows. Color fill, accent 1, outline, and it says it's the second option in the third row. So 1, 2, 3. Second option would be here. Color filled, accent 1, dark 1 outline. Perfect. And it previewed it, so I could tell already it looked just like the one in the solution file. Now, the last part of the instruction, 6B, says click the Layout button, and we're familiar with that. And this time we're going to choose the Square option. When you hover your mouse over, you'll get a tooltip, and it tells me this one is the Square. So watch the text when I click this. See how I'm going to click away for just a minute. See how it moved this so that that square image, the text, flows in that square pattern around it. That looks actually really nice. My ribbon's gone away because this is not selected anymore. If I select it, it comes back. Remember, you can click this button again to hide that dialog box if it's still showing. Now, I like what we did there. Let's save that. That was the step number 6 instructions. Moving right along, move the icon to step number 7, move the icon using alignment guides. Now, what are alignment guides? They have a figure down here that they reference, and it's showing us these green alignment guides. As we go into this step, and you start to move your image, these green guides, alignment guides, might display automatically. And if so, that's great. They're designed to try to help you. Look at that, it's showing you the edge and the top of this WordArt so that you can align the image very well. If they don't show, I'm going to show you how to turn them on. So it says, if necessary, select the icon you inserted. Click and drag the icon so that it is aligned vertically with the WordArt text. In other words, vertically aligned in this case means the tops. It could mean that the bottom. See how Book Festival is aligned with the top of the image and not the bottom? So vertically, we're talking about being aligned either at the top or at the bottom. It says on the right side of the icon is aligned with the right side of the paragraph text down here. Okay, so let's move this out of the way. And the first thing I want to show you is how to turn on those alignment guides. I'm going to go, well, we're on the graphics format tab. So let's see if we can do it here. See this group of tools, align, group, rotate? You can often select multiple objects and use align to force those objects to align in different ways. Sometimes you want them to stick together, which means you want to group them. And of course, rotate means, to turn around. So I have my icon selected. And as I click on align, I see how you can align left, center, right. You can align vertically, tops, middle, bottom. Okay, distribute. Sometimes it's so hard sometimes to get the spacing between multiple objects correct, so you can use that to distribute the space. Align to the page, align to the margin. Use alignment guides. I'm going to check that. Okay, if I click that align again, see how now it has a check mark next to it. So you want the check mark next to it. Now, I did this under the graphics format tab, which is fine. If you were doing something else, maybe not working with an icon, then you would not have this ribbon. So please know you can also find this under Layout and then under Align here. In Microsoft, there are always multiple ways to perform tasks. So I'm back because I have my alignment guides now. And my goal, if I look at the picture, see, I'm going to try to drag it to this corner over here. Let me do that. So I'm going to get it by the edge, four-sided arrow. Now, did I mention that? Very important that, you get that mouse on that edge. You have this four-sided arrow shape. If I go up a little too high, then I'm not going to select the icon. If I go down just a little too low, or a little too far to the right, or a little too far to the left, then my mouse is not in the proper shape. This shape indicates that I am about to select this object. The same is true, by the way, of the WordArt. When you select this, if you want to move it, you have to get your mouse over the border. Now, not the dots. The dots are to resize the box, not to move it. To move it, you have to go along the edge here. So only use these dots. These dots are called sizing handles. Only use those dots to resize the box or the icon. I'm going to select my icon again. I'm going to make sure I have, and see when I'm on the picture, I can get that as well. But I'm going to go to this border. I'm in between those dots. I am not on those sizing handles. I'm going to press my mouse button down and hold it, and I'm oh, do you see my green lines? Now, I am having such a time getting that aligned. Huh. Let me test something here. Okay, maybe I'm not far enough over to the right. There we go. Folks, my problem was my mouse was not far enough towards the margin. So now I've got both grid lines and there it goes, and I've got the top one. Woo, that took some fancy mouse work. Let me undo, because if you're having trouble, here's what I determined is the tip. You want to get your four-sided arrow, press the mouse button down, keep the mouse button down as you move your hand, so you need some space on your desktop so that you can move. Go all the way to the right until you see that green grid line, and then go up a little bit, and make sure you go up and high enough until you see that green grid line. If you go too far, well, it doesn't want to let you go too far, so that's going to be good. So go up till you see that green grid line. Woo! Save that work, right? Okay, does ours look a little like the picture? Look how the book comes down here and it wraps right at September 8th through 10th. Little things like that are going to help you understand if you've made a mistake. So I moved the icon, and I even turned on grid lines, so we've learned a lot of new things. On to step number 8. Add alt text. That's short for alternative text to the image. You learned about this in your sim book. Click the Graphics Format tab, so we know that we're going to get a new ribbon. And in the Accessibility group, click the Alt Text button. And in the Alt Text task pane, if there is a text description, delete it and type illustration of 3 stacked books as the alt text. This is so important. This is very important. Let me move these instructions out of the way. And I have my icon selected. Now imagine that you were visually impaired, or you were downloading this from the internet and you're trying to view, right? Maybe you saved this as a PDF and you're trying to view this on the web. You might set your browser to not display images because they take too long to display. On your cell phone, images can sometimes have difficulty displaying. Here's my point. There are many reasons that someone cannot see those images. When they cannot see that image, what will you tell them? They're going to see a red X. Image will not display, red X. Oh no, am I missing something critical? Tell me what the image is. In fact, if it takes that image some time to download, if you will put some alt text here, I'll see what it's supposed to be before it can finish downloading. And I can decide then if I want to sit there and wait for that picture to download or not. Okay? Very, very important. So I've selected this, And they are telling me on the graphics format, let's go back to that ribbon, in the accessibility group. Here it is. Click Alt Text. Folks, if you are on a much older version, maybe not even much older, like 2019, you're going to have to go a little further to get this alt text. You might have to right click and see if you can find it through the menu. This is something that in the newer versions of the software has a greater presence, which is really good. Now, AI will often generate some alt text. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But they told us to delete what's here. Now, right now they have books with solid fill. Maybe that's okay for this type of graphic, but we want to follow the instructions because we don't want to lose any points. And in all lowercase, which I have issue with, they have us type illustration of 3 stacked books. Right? You should capitalize that I in real life. One final note. Sometimes you have an image that is strictly decorative. It doesn't add anything to the document. Maybe it's just like a line across the screen. It doesn't really add anything. In that case only, mark it as decorative. If it conveys information, then put the information up here. What is it conveying? Let folks know. All right, save that work. We are moving right along. We added alt text. And if you can remember to do that to any graphic that you add, any photograph that you add, any chart that you add, your readers are going to be much more pleased with this because your point, your information will be communicated. And that's the goal. Step 9, insert a shape. Navigate to the Authors section of the document, and on the Insert tab, click in the Illustrations group, Shapes, and we're going to get that 5-pointed star that we saw in the solution file. The cursor changes to a crosshair. Folks, when that mouse changes, it means you have a function there. There's some special function that mouse can do. Remember when we put it out into the left margin, how the direction of the pointer changes? Remember how it changes into an I-beam when we can click to move our insertion point. As this mouse keeps changing, it indicates to you, it signals to you something that we can do here. And these skills, that knowledge of what that mouse is telling you, carries over into just about every other software that I can think of, okay? So it's definitely between Microsoft softwares. And then we're going to add that star. So let me move this. And they want us to navigate to Authors, which is probably a title. So I could use my Find button to go to that heading. Here's Authors. I'm going to click so that my cursor is flashing immediately before the A in Authors. I knew I could click there because my mouse turned to an I-beam. I-beam always means if you click here, you can type. That's handy when you see it change on your font group. You could just type Times New Roman. You could type Arial, Helvetica. You could type, I want a 26-point font instead of a 28. Okay, that I-beam means click to type. So we've done that. On the Insert tab, in the Illustrations group, which we know is here, click the Shapes. Right next to Icon, here it is, Shapes. And look at all these shapes that we have. We have arrows. I see that I've probably used that star, so I have it in my recently used shapes. You may not have it there, so let's keep looking. We have all kinds of lines and rectangles, some pretty, basic type shapes. Little smiley face, that's kind of cool. Hearts, arrows, very helpful. Different signs for equations. And down here we have stars and banners. Callouts, by the way, are very useful because they point to text or to a part of the diagram that you want to draw people's attention to. But we're looking at stars. So see this 5-pointed star? I'm going to click that one time. And as I move my mouse, do you see the crosshair? That's what this is indicating. It looks like a giant plus sign, but the middle of that plus sign is the tip of your mouse. And what you do is you've got to be someplace in the document. You don't necessarily need to be, right there, but you're going to press in the top left corner and drag diagonally right. So press and drag. I'm going in a diagonal motion, and when I release, I have a star. I can delete that. Let's do it again. I go to Insert, I go to Shapes. It should now be in your recently used items. If not, I'll do it again. Press and drag diagonally. Do you see the direction of my crosshair? I could go huge, but we know that this is going to be a reasonably sized star. I want it to be fairly proportional, so I don't want to, go crazy like that. I'll give you a tip, one more tip. I'm going to release that and I'm going to delete it one more time. If you want to make sure that your star looks right, that it's not kind of wonky, distorted, click that star, press and hold the mouse button down, and once again, the magic of the Shift key. When you draw diagonally, even if I try to make it too wide, it stays proportional. That's a tip for you. The Shift plus mouse keeps the shape proportional. Release the mouse, release the Shift key. Isn't that something? Okay, let's see. We should save. We've got a star on that page. Let's save. Navigate to Authors. Insert a 5-pointed star. We did that. We saw the cursor change. And we click to the right of the text authors, yes, to add the shape. So let's continue on with step number 10. We need to verify that the star is still selected. We have our shape formatting ribbon up here. And on the Shape Format tab, in the Shape Styles group, we're going to click More. And we're going to apply, one of these consistent themes. So in the Shape Quick Styles Gallery, we're going to select, that looks familiar, doesn't it? That Aqua Accent 1 says it's the second option in the 4th row under Themes. And I hope you've noticed, maybe I should have pointed out, that as we're selecting, the coloring, for example, for the books, you didn't see any bright red or orange or, things. We are working with a palette that is part of our theme. Even as I look up here, so Shape Format is selected, my star is selected. Look at my theme, my palette. It is consistent with this theme, so that helps to have a theme applied. And you learned about that in the previous chapter or the one before? Okay, so we clicked More, and they want us to go to the 4th row, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they want us to go to the second option, 1, 2, and this should be Aqua Accent 1. All right, I'm going to select that. Very nice, very kind of subtle. It's the same blue, isn't it, as some of these titles? It looks really nice. So we have that. Click on Save. It's 20 instructions, but look how quickly you're moving through. Change the size layout options and location of that shape. So we need to verify the star is selected. On the Shape Format tab, we're going to set very specifically, we're going to type in, this is the size that we want. Once again, we're going to use those layout options. We're going to select square, and we're going to drag it so that it is positioned in the way that they're showing here, and they have their green grid lines enabled. So let's do that. Here's our star, and so we verify it's selected. On the Shape Format, we'll make sure that's selected, and look all the way over here to the right. Here's the height, and if I click, now this is the same 0.5 and 0.5, so they want this to be proportional, a very square shape, right? Oh, and did you see my mouse? I got that I-beam, which means that if I click, I can type. And the same rules apply. If everything is selected, all I have to do is type 0.5 and it deletes what's there and it replaces it with what I have. When I click in this next box, now you see my star is distorted. Well, again, it's selected all the text. If not, I can select in the same ways that I could select in the document. So this is just a text box. When you know how to select, you can be fast because you know to triple click, double click, drag over, click to type. These skills are building on each other. 0.5. See, I typed 0.5 there. Press your Enter key to ensure that it sets up. In other words, you need this dialog box to recognize that you just made an update. Once it's there, look at my star. My star is now very proportional and it's smaller, and that's perfect. If I need to increase the size of my document to see, then you know how to zoom in, right, on your document. Now, I'm going to drag this into position. But before I do, I want to show you something, a symbol that you might see that you might be wondering about. You may see an anchor over here. That is very common with different objects, whether it's WordArt, whether it's our icon, or now this shape. The anchor tells me that this shape is tied to this page and this paragraph. It is something that you can hover over. You see my four-sided arrow? And we know that that shape means that I can move it. So here's what happens sometimes. If I'm trying to move this shape to another page, sometimes it won't go. And it keeps bouncing back to the page that you're on. And it's because it is anchored there. Now, if I start to drag this shape into other paragraphs, do you see the anchor moving? It's trying to anchor itself to a particular paragraph, which is fine. To move to another page, when you're kind of on the border, it can get a little tricky. That's where you run into problems. So knowing about that anchor and that it's what's holding your image can be helpful. With that said, I'm going to slide my star. Oops, I'm using my grid lines. And if you go up too high, I won't get the top grid line. If I don't go over to the left far enough, I won't get the left one. So I have to go far to the left and far enough up. Not too far, but just right. I missed one step, which is why my text is not wrapping. I moved it. I did step D before I did step C. What is it that we're supposed to do? I'm supposed to click on Layout, and I'm supposed to choose Square. Watch my text move. And then I can click that again to make it go away. And I can even click away sometimes just so I can see my work. That's important. Okay, now here's the question. When I look at my instructions or else the solution file, here's my work. See where the star is? Does it align with the instructions? If your star is too low, the word locations will not be wrapped underneath it, and it should be. If your star is, too high, I don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, it may only affect the title authors without affecting the other text. If your star is too big, it's not going to align in this exact same way. So compare your screen to my screen, to the instructions, to the solution file. Make sure that you catch the error when you're on step 11, not when you're on step 12. And you saw I made an error. I forgot step C here to do the layout option. So we have to be vigilant, okay? On to step 12. Let me get this out in the middle so you can see. We're going to add that chart. Remember that pie graph we saw at the bottom of the document? So we're going to place the cursor in an empty line, empty paragraph below. The following chart shows the breakdown of authors by genre. We're going to click Insert. In the illustration group, we're going to click the chart. In the Insert Chart dialog box, we're going to tell it we want a pie chart. More than that, we're going to make a 3D pie to get fancy. And then we have to put in the data because the graph has to, the chart has to chart something. So we need to tell it the data. Now, let me pause here, folks, and say this. Very soon, we're going to start learning Excel. And the way I would do this in real life is I would make a little chart in Excel, which would take 2 seconds, and I would copy and paste that into Word. Word and Excel and PowerPoint work beautifully together, and you can embed and insert and copy and paste your charts. Since Excel is a tool that excels in charting and graphing and working with tables and data, that would be the tool that I would use. But it's okay this time to leverage this built-in feature of Word. So let's do that. We're going to follow these instructions. I need to navigate down, see where it says the following chart shows the breakdown of authors by genre, and they said to click on this empty line, this empty paragraph, go to the Insert tab, and in the Illustrations group, this time we're going over here to Chart. Every kind of chart, I think that you have in Excel, I'm tempted to say that, every type of chart that you need to make in Word, you have here. Look at all these rich types of charts. And they've asked us to look at a pie chart. Now, I want you to understand when you use a pie chart. You use a pie chart to show how much someone is contributing to the whole. You will never include in a pie chart a grand total, because the pieces make the grand total. So you would never say, I earned, $5,632 and say, how do I put that in the pie chart? What the pie chart would represent is what sales did you make or what work did you do to earn the total. Those pieces would total to $5,632. Keep that in mind. This represents contributions to a whole. Now, here's the pie chart category. I selected that. And across the top, you start to see different types of pies. And I'm trying to hover my mouse, but my mouse is blocking the little tooltips. Isn't that fancy? A donut pie chart. And I mean, a chart where you break out, it says a bar of a pie. In other words, yeah. So you can see, you can get really, really fancy here where you're graphing a piece of the pie. This second one, and they told us that in the instructions, it's the second option, is the 3D pie. Pick that. See how it turned it a little bit? And when you hover your mouse over it, you see it much more. And see how this is an annual. In their example, they're saying here's an annual contribution made up of first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. What do you not see? Grand total. The pie is the grand total. So let's say okay. And there's my pie. Now, I already see that it created a new page. It was so large, it forced a new page. So I know that I'm going to have some cleanup work to do here, but just kind of be aware of that. I would also ask you to notice that it's an object. See this little square around it? This is a floating object on the page. Also, notice that it looks like it's already been filled out. This is not our data. Whose sales are these? These are not ours. This example allows us to just replace the pieces and parts with what we need. So what did they want us to do here? They said in the chart, in Microsoft Word dialog, change the data in the chart to match the table. So here's the table. You know what? Welcome to Excel. You are doing a little bit of Excel. This is a floating box, and it might go away if I click away. Oh, okay, is it decided to stay? Sometimes if you click into text, okay, it is going to stay there. That's kind of nice, actually. But this, I did not mean to do that. So how can I edit data in Excel? Oh, I closed the box. And actually that was what I wanted to show you anyway, is that if you don't see that, how do you get it back? Well, first of all, notice that now I can select it as an object, and I have many menu options over here. Notice also when I click, see my four-sided arrow? Now be careful here, because when you start clicking, this is really hugely important. Notice the dots. Earlier I told you these dots on the outside are sizing handles, and that's what they are. They will allow me to make that chart bigger or smaller. But unlike the other things that we've selected, this chart has pieces inside it. When I click sales, do you see that the word sales has dots around it? That is an object inside this object. And those dots are also sizing handles. Oops, if I can select it. Well, I'm having trouble. I see my cursor is inside there. I can move it. See how I'm moving it around? If I click the pie, do you see the dots? I've selected every piece in this pie, and I can tell that by the dots that are everywhere, those sizing handles. If I click this gray piece again, notice that now only it has dots and the other pieces of the pie do not. Why am I telling you all this? Because you have an object with objects inside of it, and each time you click, it changes what is selected. So I'm going to click away. I'm trying to deselect. Let me see my paragraph mark there. I'm clicking so that my cursor is now on the paper. It's right next to that paragraph mark. So the first time I click, oh, even this time, what did it select? It selected another object inside this object. This can be tricky. You're going to love this later on, because you're going to say, oh, that's so great. I can just move in here and I can, adjust this pie, and I can do all kinds of things. For example, you'll probably do some kind of exploding piece of pie. Isn't that kind of fun? You will be able to easily delete or add or change different parts of the title. But right now, you're just being introduced to this, so you can easily start formatting the wrong thing or wondering why your menus are not aligned with what we're trying to do. Like you saw, I didn't mean to close my Excel little pop-up window, but I did, right? So it's good that we make these mistakes. It's good that we learn these things. I'm trying to click away someplace because my goal is to select the whole object. And so what did we learn? We learned that if we click on that border, right, and we get that four-sided arrow, that's the safe way to select that whole object. I'm so far off into the weeds now, delete. Folks, sometimes you have to start over, right? I talked about that in an earlier video. Let's do this again. Okay, let's do this again. We're going to insert, we'll be faster this time, a chart. It's a pie chart, and it's a 3D pie chart. Okay. Now, hopefully, this brought your Excel spreadsheet back up. If it did not, bring your little Excel pop-up box back up. Or let's just say you closed it by accident. What you can do, see that you have two new ribbons for a chart. You have Format ribbon. Look at all the formatting we can do. And you have Chart Design ribbon. Make sure you're on Chart Design ribbon. And with the chart selected, and only the chart, you see this, there's 6 dots. What is that? 6 dots? 9 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 dots. 8 dots going around that. Those are all sizing handles. They tell me that this is what's selected, and I don't see any dots inside. I want to bring back that little pop-up window. So up here in Chart Design ribbon, select data. Now, it opened the little editing window, and it also opened another window, just closed just that one. So now you have this. So what were we doing? I'm going to even make this just a little bigger so that I can see. And in fact, I can move it a little higher up on the screen. I can replace, and I need to replace, all of this data with my data. Notice that some is in purple and red and it looks like blue. This data is already selected, and it is possible that I might have to expand or shorten these selections using the dots, because these dots are sizing handles. So if I have more, quarters or more titles, then I might need to expand that. If I have more than just one column, I might need to expand that. More, again, more data pieces, I would have to expand this. They have, I think, tried to take it a little easy on us because it looks very similar in terms of the quantity and the way it's distributed. Now, I'm going to introduce this to you. Do you see that this column has a label B? And you see that there's numbers over here, 1, 2, 3, right? A, B, C. Always start with the letter, and I'm going to click on the cell or the box that represents B1. Right now the word sales is in there, B1. So click on the word sales and just type authors. Whatever is selected will be affected. So it replaced sales with authors. In Excel, I must let it know I'm not editing that cell anymore. So I must always remember to press the Enter key when I'm done. Do you see how now it's finished with that? And the cursor's not even flashing anymore. Now, since it moved me down one, and I'm in cell B2, where it currently says 8.2, type the number 3. Remember, I must press the Enter key to finish the cell. Press that. It moved me down. Press the number 2 and your Enter key, the number 3 and your Enter key, the number 2 and your Enter key. So the numbers have changed, and if you glance at the chart in the background, you see that the pie chart, has changed. But we're not done yet. I scrolled up a little bit inside here, and I'm going to click in A2, where it currently says first quarter. That's cell A2. And I need to carefully type Fiction General. I did not delete anything. What is selected is affected. I had it selected. I typed. It replaced the text. Press your Enter key. Crime Fiction. Press your Enter key. Business. Press your Enter key. Food and lifestyle. Press your Enter key. As a general principle, I tend to arrow, for example, back up so that I'm in cell A1 because I want this to be fully set up. I don't want any cell to think that I am still editing it. This is the data, and the chart is based on this data. I want to click away someplace to a safe spot. Look at that. I did it again, didn't I? And there's got to be a short, restore. That's what I was looking for, restore. There we go. I'm trying to move this out of my way. So if you accidentally apparently double click that, I don't have my little buttons over here, but over here, if you'll click on restore. Okay. Now I can see my chart. I can see this little floating box. We also understand, now see, as I'm with this, I don't have my ribbons up here. I only get my ribbons when I have my chart selected, but I have to be really careful what I've selected. If you want this outside container, select that border, 4-sided arrow, not resizing handle, 4-sided arrow. Wow, look at us go. We better save that. I'm looking at the instructions. Let me pull those back over. So what did we do? My goodness, we did a lot in step 12. We did the cursor, we clicked insert, we added a chart. It was a pie chart, a 3D pie chart. We clicked OK. And then we updated the Word dialog box to change the data. And they actually told us click the close button in the chart in Microsoft Word dialog box. So I guess we could close that Excel window if it's still floating. We know how to bring it back, right? We know how to go to chart design and click select data to quickly bring that back. But I think we're good. So I closed that. And we're on to step number 13. In step number 13, we're going to modify and resize the chart. So we're going to format it. Basically, we're going to click the chart styles button, and I can already see that selection of styles across here. We're going to scroll through the list and select style number 6. Click a corner. Here we're going to use those resizing handles. The reason they're telling us to pick the corner one is because that lets us adjust both the height and the width at the same time, and they're saying that we're going to make it small enough to fit at the bottom of page 3. Then we click outside the chart, in other words, in some safe spot, to deselect it. So let's do that. Let me move this. We have our chart selected. Remember, you want to select it at the corner. I'm on this chart design tab, and let's see, they said move your mouse over each one. We need to find style number 6. Well, that's 8. I think style number 6 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over. So if you can find that, select that. There we go. Wasn't that easy? And it says now we're going to grab these corners. Now let's just look. I need it to fit here. Okay, so I know it doesn't have to be tiny, but it's a little too big right now. So what if I grab this bottom corner? Did you see my mouse change shapes? I've got a double-sided arrow, not a four-sided arrow, double-sided arrow. And a small mouse motion will make a big difference. If you make a mistake, Control Z to undo. I'm going to press that corner and drag. I want it to stay proportional. Why not hold the Shift key down? When you think it's about the right size, release the mouse, release the Shift key. Well, mine's not quite small enough. Let me try this again. I'm going to press and drag, but I'm going to hold my Shift key down because I want it to stay kind of proportional. How about that? So that's about how mine is. Once it's up here, I might, make it a little bigger and see if I can get by with just a little more. I'm not even keeping it proportional anymore. The reason that keeping something proportional with data, with graphs, is very important is you don't want to misrepresent that one piece of the pie is a lot bigger than another piece of the pie. Okay, I'm going to Control Z to put that back. So you may want to try to keep that a little proportional. Save that. Oh, that's so beautiful. Look at that hard work. Chart styles, number 6, it's on the bottom of the page. We need to click outside to deselect it because we are just moving right along to step number 14, where we're going to delete rows from tables. Wow. Navigate to the agenda section, and in the first table, select the row with the text Thursday, September 8th. Click the table layout tab. In the rows and columns group, click delete, and we're going to delete that the rows, just that row, I guess. Navigate to agenda, the first table, select that one row, Thursday, September 8th, and delete that. Repeat these steps to delete the first row of the other 2 tables in this section. Okay, now this might be a place where we need to look at the solution just to make sure. Okay, let's learn about tables because there is a lot to them. We're going up here. Look at these nice tables. I love these because they're great for schedules. What a great use for those. And I can even see lines around this table. Now, in this case, the show hide might be causing us a little bit of confusion. It's maybe a little hard to see. Does that make it easier to see? When I have this table selected, I want you to notice that it is an object. Even if this square was not formatted with lines. We learned how to apply lines in chapter 2 of Word, where we had the quotes and we put the line above the quote and below the quote. Well, in this case, we have lines all throughout. Just to refresh your memory, on the Home tab, this button here, remember this is where we had could show our different borders, and currently all the borders are showing. I want to give you one pro tip, and that is whenever you are working with tables, go ahead and turn on all those lines. Format it with all those lines. You can always change it back later, but it makes it so much easier to see these lines. This is an object. I see it floating. See this sizing handle down here? And up here, I have a selection control. This allows me, this little selection handle here selects the entire table. It will let me apply formatting to the whole table because what is selected is affected. It will also, you see when my mouse is over it, I have four-sided arrow, and we know that that means I can move this object. So I can either move it with the sizing handle, or I can just start applying formatting. I also want you to notice something else. If you don't have those rulers turned on, you really need to do that. Because look at the top. Instead of having one margin, I have multiple margins. Compare that with the table selected, my ruler, to if I click in the paragraph. I only have a margin here and a margin there. So hopefully what you're seeing is that each cell or each column has a margin that I can drag to adjust. See my mouse change as I put it over those margins? So I could change the width of that column. Look over here. If you can see, it's very subtle. The row height also has margins. So these are like little bitty Word documents, little bitty right inside each one of those cells. Okay? Once you kind of start to recognize how much you are learning and how much you know, the challenge becomes exploring and remembering to apply what you know. If my mouse changes to an I-beam, I have to remember I can click. If I know how to select, if I know things like Control A, they tend to still work. In fact, if I click in this cell, shall we challenge this and I Control A, it's not quite the bounded container. It selected the whole document, not just the contents of the cell, because this is, notice I don't have those 8 dots all the way around. It is a container, but it's a little more embedded. I can't make this table, for example, float above. I don't have a layout option over here. I can left align and right align, but the table it's really special formats of columns and rows, within the document. So a little bit of an object, but what you've learned about objects will help. All right, what did they ask me to do? I already have this beautiful title heading here, Thursday, September 8th, so I do not need it in the table. I've clicked inside the table. Now, folks, they are telling me table layout, rows and columns, delete rows, right click. You do not have to go through all that. Right click. Right click, first of all, pulls up this little toolbar, but it also always gives me a context sensitive menu. In other words, menu about what I've right clicked upon. Here's delete row. Done. Scroll down, they told us to do it here. So here I am on Friday, September 9th. Click there, right click there, delete rows. Here we are September 10th, click there, right click there, delete rows. Fast, easy, right click. Oh, should we save? We haven't saved. We should save. Bring back up those instructions. So we navigated to agenda and we updated each table. Cool, on to step 15. In the Thursday, September 8th table, select the cocktail reception and dinner cell and the 2 empty cells to the right. On the table layout in the merge group, select the merge cells button. So we're going to merge together this one cell that has content in it plus the 2 empty cells. If you merge cells where each of the cells has content, only the content from one will survive. It tends to be the cell to the farthest left. Delete the extra blank lines in the cell. Center the text in the September, well, let's do that part next. So let's just start with 15, step A, where we go up here to September 8th. And they wanted us to select cocktail reception and the two cells to the right. And they want us to merge these. So up here on my ribbon, let's see, did they tell us which group this was in? Table layout. That sounds like a layout thing, right? As I look at my many options, I mean, I've got everything. Erase, delete, insert rows, the alignment. Look at all the sorting. Sorting is awesome. All kinds of things. But what they wanted us to do is in this group that says merge, to merge those cells. Excellent. They also want us to delete the extra blank lines. I can't see those. So I want to go back and turn on show hide. Now I can see them. I'm going to click after the R in dinner. Delete, delete. There we go. I'm going to save that. And they said center. They want this centered. So I'm going to click there. Now, I can, within this cell, simply click the center button across. What does this center do? It centers horizontally from left to right. Now, when they said to center the text in the cell, a cell also has height to it. So this only centers left to right. If I go over here to table layout, look at all my centering options. When they said center, they meant this center, so that it is also aligned top to bottom. Now, in this particular cell, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference now. But remember, we could add some more content to this cell. We might change the formatting, in which case it would matter. Look at this content. See how it's all aligned towards the top? If I use this center button, do you see how it put it in the center of the cell? Likewise, I could still have it left aligned, but in the center, or I could even put it at the bottom in the center. Now, I want to put it back, but I did that to demonstrate. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z to get it back to where it was. So when they told us to center, they meant this center. See how that says align center? That's what they're talking about. Save that. Now, there were some more parts to that instruction set. They said in the Saturday, September 10th table, merge the closing remarks cell and the two empty cells to the left of that, and center that as well. So September 10th, see, they've already done that one. Now look, they put closing remarks. This time it's over here. But the important thing is these two are empty, so there's no conflict with the content. So once again, we're going to merge, and we know we need to use this center button on table layout. Save that. We finished this, we finished that. Let's continue to step number 16. Insert a row to a table. So in our September 8th table, we're going to place the cursor before 3 to 4 o'clock. We're going to move the cursor to the left until you see the Insert Row button above the cell. Click the Insert Row button to add a new blank row. We're going to add this time, 1:30 to 3 o'clock. And then in the blank cell under Washington Theater, we're going to have a welcome and a keynote. All right. Let's do that. My window is jumping around. There we go. So I'm supposed to be in September 8th, and they said position our cursor before the 3 and 3 o'clock, and to move what they say, move the cursor to the left until you see Insert Row. Again, this would be so much easier if I just right click. So anywhere in this row, I'm just going to click on the word 3 o'clock, right click, although you see you have menus options up here as well, but right click, insert, insert row above. Isn't that easier than trying to do all that? Insert row above. So we're going to click under time, and I move my mouse out of the way because I don't need that anymore. 1:30, and is that a space? I think they have a space there, to 3 o'clock. Does that look? No, that looks, I think I don't need those spaces. When I look at the rows below, I don't think they have spaces. I think it's just 1:30 hyphen 3 o'clock. And then they want us to come under the Washington Theater, which is this very last column, welcome and keynote. Excellent. Save that. And let's check those instructions. We did that. We inserted a row. We added 1:30 to 3, and we finished that. That means we're already on to step number 17. In step 17, we are told in the Friday, September 9th table, select all the rows except the first row. And on the table layout in the data group, click the Sort button. Verify the column will sort in ascending order by column 1 using the text in the paragraphs, and then click OK. So sorting is a powerful feature of tables. It's very nice. So we need to go to September 9th. And look at our times. They're all over the place. We probably just put them in as people were telling us these times, and we'll fix it later. So it said select everything except for the first row. So the first row is the headings, right? So I'm clicking to make this active. I'm selecting. They said all the rows. Let's see, all the rows except the first row. So I'm even selecting this very last row. It says on the table layout tab, this is where I find my sort. I believe you can right click and get to that. Also, verify the column that you will sort is column 1. Is there? So I'm going to pick column 1. That's what I need to do. If I have a header row, I could have selected all of that and specified that I had a header row, in which case it would say time rather than column 1. So that would be a little bit more meaningful. Now, I have choices here. It says, so, how should I sort this? It says by the text in the paragraphs, and so that's good. It did not specify, but the default is ascending order. I'm going to click OK. Let's always verify our work. Does that make sense? 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, noon, 2, 3, 4, 5. Makes sense. That looks good. I'm just going to click and save. See how fast we're going through this? You guys are so smart. I have to keep up. So apply the quick styles to the table. We want our table to look good. So we're going to select the Thursday, September 8th table. You know how to do that. Click the Table Design tab, and in the Table Style Options group, uncheck the banded rows. That's where every row is an alternate color. Header row and first column should be the only options selected. Let's start with that because that's kind of a mouthful here. Okay. We're going to select the table. Now, in this case, I want to select the entire table. So remember that selector up here in the upper left corner. And it wants a, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong table. I'm on September 9th. Let's select September 8th table and make sure that I'm on the Table Design tab. So I need to change to Table Design. And look at our styles. We have lots of styles. Let me expand that. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I do that, over here, first of all, do you see where it says header row? Well, we have a header row, time, Jefferson Room, Hamilton Room, Washington Theater, and the schedule, everything in those columns applies to the header of that column. So we do have a header row. It's in the first column. Sometimes, you have them on the left as well as at the top. And sometimes you have a totals row at the bottom that you may want to have formatted separately. These rows are currently banded. We don't want that, so we uncheck that. In the table style group, click the More button, and we are looking for Grid Table 1 Light Accent. So notice that they're in groups that try to help you. Is it just a list? Do you want it more plain? So it looks like we're probably in this grid. It's the third option, they say, in the section. So 1, 2, 3, this way, third option. Grid Table 1 Light Accent 2. So sure enough, this is it. It's in our theme palette, right? All those choices were in our theme palette. If I click away, you can see that beautiful blue, and you can see that the line underneath the header row is a little thicker. It knows that's a header row. Can you also see the bolding that it applied? Look how smart Microsoft Word is. It understood that these 1:30, 3 o'clock, 4, it understood to bold those as well. We have labels on the left and labels on the right, or on the top. Headers on the top, headers on the left. Okay, so did we do everything? Let's pull those instructions back over. Well, we got the correct table. We went to table design. We unchecked banded rows. We looked at table styles. We selected the correct style. It says apply this quick style to the other two tables in the agenda section. Be sure to uncheck banded row, the option. So we got 2 more tables to do. Let's go ahead and scroll down. I clicked in the table so it would display this selector. Now I have the whole table selected. Go to table design. Don't forget to uncheck banded row. Then we're going to go back. We probably can pick it out of the crowd here, right? Do you see it under table design? Grid Table 1 Light Accent. Oops, I got the wrong one. Light Accent 2. It makes me wonder, did I get the right one for this one? Yeah. See how when I click in this table, it's showing me what is applied, so I can verify I did select the correct one. Table for September 10th, click anywhere in the table, click the selector, uncheck banded rows, and make sure you get Grid Table 1 Light Accent 2. Notice it's even left aligning that table. Very nice. Click, just so I can see I'm clicking away someplace. Save. That was the last part of that instruction. Look, we're at the end already. Woohoo! We did very well. So, are we ready to submit? No, because we haven't saved and closed. So let me move this out of the way. Let's come up here. Let's save. And, I just have to take a glance at this document. Close that alt book. I like multi-pages. It lets me see. You may, if you've zoomed in or out, you may want to go back to 100% zoom and just kind of look at, does it look like the solution file? I think it does. I'm going to save and I'm going to close. And now we're ready to submit. Now on my desktop, I happen to still have my Word folder 4 open. I'm going to see my mouse change shape as I go across the very edge of this. I'm going to move this in a little bit to resize. I'm going to grab it by the title bar and pressing and holding my mouse to move it to the side. Because I'm ready to submit this, I want to make real sure that I am submitting my Chapter 4 work. Very common error is to accidentally submit your Chapter 3 work. Go to the top. If I click on this page, Control Home, and I've downloaded, I've done the work, now I'm ready to upload. But what I've learned we can do is just grab this file from here and drop it on top of the upload button and release. Yes, I'm ready to submit. Now, this was a lot of work, folks. You got your fingers crossed, fingers and toes. Oh, look at there, 100%. Woohoo, woohoo. Now, folks, if you did something wrong, you know the drill. You need to look at this image. This is not your file. This is the solution. But what you will see on this solution is notations to anything that you may have gotten in error. You made a mistake. When you see that, when you click on it, or you can look over here in this left panel, it will try to point you to where the mistake is. It may not be an exact explanation, but it'll give you the general area. Go back. If you don't see a mistake for step 8 or step 9, it's possible that the mistake is earlier in the document and the program just detected that it threw everything else off. So you might have to start back at step 1, compare your screen to mine every step along the way. That'll keep you in good stead and you'll get that 100%. Thank you, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson.